All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're actually going to get into the editing part of it, which is kind of the fun of it, of course. So we're going to go to our right side panel right here. And this second button right here, it's got a bunch of sliders. We're going to click that. And this is where you can edit your photo. So we're going to look at the option of light, color, effects, these three right here. We're not going to worry about detail, optics, and geometry. You can play with those as we go. But these three right here, light, color, and effects, are the main ones that we're going to focus on in this class. So how do we get to our editing menu? You can click this button right here, which is the second one down, or you can just press E on your keyboard, E. So if I press E, boom, then it gets into editing mode, just like that, okay? And if you're like, where are all my photos? You can just click this button right here, and it gets all your photos back. So we can minimize that. Come over here, and then E for edit. So the first thing that we're gonna get into is light. And Lightroom is smart, and they put the most important things to start editing first. So I'm not gonna go to geometry, which is gonna, distort my picture and whatnot. I'm not gonna start off with that. That's kind of the last thing we do. We always start with light first. So when I click light, it gives me all these options, and don't be intimidated by them. All these options to edit light. And if I wanna edit color, it gives me all my color options, and effects, it gives me all my effects. Now, you can keep all of these open by just pressing the arrow, but then you have to keep scrolling up and down for all of them. I typically like to do one at a time. That's just how I work, but it's up to you. So we're gonna go with light, because this one's about light. And the first thing that we're gonna talk about is exposure. Now, we've talked about exposure in the class, how exposure is how much light is getting into your picture, all right? So if we slide this to the right, all kinds of light is coming in, and as you can see, it's very white. And then if we bring it all the way back down, then it becomes very dark. So we're changing the exposure, how much light is in this photo. And if I wanna go back, I'm gonna double click on that little dot, and there you go. So we can adjust it a little bit to the right to make it brighter, and a little bit to the left to make it darker, okay? And if we wanna go back to 0, we click that right there. So that's exposure, how much light is entering in. Okay, our next one is contrast, all right? Now, contrast is if I move it to the right, what's happening to the photo? So in this, if I turn the contrast up, which means to the right, our lights are getting lighter, as you can see the sky, and our darks are getting darker. You can focus on this window right here, So focus on this window and the sky right here. So I'm gonna bring it back to 0, and I'm gonna increase it. So as you can see, the sky is still white, but it's not very bright. And the window, we can kind of see the window panes and the wood in the window. So I am going to increase contrast. And as you can see, our whites are getting whiter, our darks are getting darker, all right? And if I turn down my contrast, then it's making it a bit smoother. We're not seeing as much detail. Those darks are lightening, and as you can see, the lights are kind of fading away, all right? So that has a nice effect to it if you want to turn the contrast down. But if you want kind of more details, then we can turn the contrast up. And typically in photography, you always want to turn contrast up just a little bit. It just adds a little bit of definition. Those darks are popping out, and those whites are popping out, okay? So I'm gonna move this back to 0. Okay, so highlights. Highlights are all of our brighter colors, Okay, so it's only going to adjust the bright colors. It's not going to do anything to the dark. And as you can see, it's only really doing anything to the sky right here because those are our brightest colors. So if I move my highlights up, it's going to make them brighter. And if I move my highlights down, it's going to make them darker. So if you just notice that you want to adjust the things that are brighter in this picture without changing anything, then highlights is your go-to. So I can increase it and make it brighter, decrease it to make it darker. Same thing with highlights, shadows, that is the opposite. So that's working with all of the darker colors in your photo. So find something dark in the photo. Maybe we can go back to this window. And if I increase this, those darks are becoming lighter. And then I can put the shadow this way and those darks are getting darker. All right. So if you want to adjust only the dark parts of the picture and make them darker, we can move it to the left. And if we want to adjust those dark parts to make them a little bit lighter to match, then we can move it this way and increase the light. So this makes it lighter and this makes it darker. Okay. The next one is whites. Now, whites is very similar to highlights. Okay, so think of whites and highlights, think of shadows and blacks. Whites are only white colors, so the brightest, like the absolute white part. So I can increase the white, I can decrease the white. Increase, decrease, okay? And the same for the blacks. This makes only the black, things that are absolutely black. This makes them lighter and this makes them blacker, just like that. So you can get kind of different effects as you slide these around. And honestly, the best way to learn about these is just to practice and keep sliding them around. I don't recommend going super, super high, super, super low at first. You can slide it around and kind of find it, but very rarely are you going to go 100 or negative 100 in each direction, okay? So to recap, exposure is how much light is coming in. Contrast is the lights get lighter, the darks get darker. Highlights, they only adjust the brightest parts of your photo or the brighter parts of your photo. Shadows, it works with the darker parts of your photo. Whites, it works with only whites. Blacks, it works with only blacks. So those are the adjustment parts of light. We're not going to worry about point curve. There's going to be a separate video about that one. So I'm going to collapse this right there. And we're going to go right into color. Okay, so I'm going to open up color. And I'm going to collapse this. And for now, we're just going to worry about temperature, tint, vibrance, saturation, and color mixer. Just those right here. We're not going to worry about color grading for now. Okay, so temperature. All right, as you can see, this is a blue and then this is a yellow, and they have different sides. So blue's here and yellow's here. So if we want to make a cooler picture, like a colder picture, we can add some blue to it like that. And as you can see, that's a lot of blue. And then in the opposite direction, we can make it warmer, all right, by adding some orange. So if you want to make it a little bit happier, then we can move it to the warmer side. If you want to make it a little bit more gloomy, then we can move it to the blue side. Tint, as you can see on the left side, we have green, and on the right side, we have purple. And so if I move this to the right side, it's going to add just a little bit of a purple hue, which is a popular color in photo editing. Just like a little bit of purple. That's good for night shots. And then moving it towards the green, we can add kind of a greenish tint to it right here. So we kind of have 4 colors to play around with that give it sort of a filter. Okay. The next are vibrance and saturation, and these are almost the same thing. And I typically use vibrance more. So both of these will increase the color intensity. So if I move my vibrance up, the color intensity is going to get more intense, okay? And if I decrease it, then the color is going to come right out of the picture, all right? So it's almost like it's black and white. And the same thing for saturation, but saturation is stronger. It's even more intense and it changes everything. So if I move my saturation up like this, it really makes those colors pop. And if I move it all the way down, then it makes it a black and white photo. Okay? We're gonna actually change the photo to this one right here. You can see the difference. So if I move vibrance up, it's making those colors pop. And if I take vibrance away, it's taking that color out of it. And saturation even more so. If I move my saturation up, it really increases the strength of the color. And if I take it away, then it makes it black and white. Now, the only problem with saturation is it affects skin tones, where vibrance doesn't. Vibrance is a safer way to increase color or decrease color than saturation. Saturation is going to change the color of everything, where vibrance, as you can notice when I take vibrance all the way down, it doesn't take all the color away. Saturation, if I take it all the way down, it takes all the color away. So it depends on how much intensity you want. I recommend vibrance over saturation. You can make the decision. And now color mixer is really helpful. So let's go to our red channel. So it has all the different colors that you can have in a photo. And this photo has a lot of red in it. So if I want, I can just change the reds. So I can increase the color intensity, the saturation of the reds, and then I can decrease just that. And I can also increase the brightness of those colors or the darkness of those colors. So luminescence is how light a color is or how dark a color is. Saturation is how intense it is or not intense it is. And hue actually will even change your color. So if you want to hue, just think hue as color. So if I change the hue, it's actually going to change the leaves to a different hue in the color wheel. So it moves throughout the color wheel and it changes the hue of them. So if you want to make those red leaves a different color, hue is your choice for that. If you want to make those red leaves more saturated, more stronger in color, you can use saturation. And if you want to make the color red in your photo lighter, adding more light to that color or more darkness to that color, then luminescence is your option. And you can do these for all of them. So we can go to green right here. So if we decrease the saturation, there's not much green in this photo, so it's not really doing much. So I can, yeah, it's not doing much. If we go to blue, maybe blue, there might be some blue in here. The sky is adjusting a little bit, but not too much. The majority of this photo is red. So let's see if there's any purple in here. It doesn't look like there's any purple. So the dominant color in this is red. So color mixer is great for saying, I just want to adjust the red or the orange colors or the yellows. There might be some yellows in here, just a little bit on the outlines of the leaves, not too much. But that's what I like about the color mixer. You get to decide which color you want to adjust and it will adjust. So that's color. And then last but not least, we have effects. So texture, if I increase texture, that's gonna really increase those details, the outline of everything. So I can move in here like that. And as you can see, if I increase that texture, you can really see those leaves kind of pop. And then if I decrease that texture, it kind of makes it like a dreamy kind of photo. Sorry, there we go. So that's texture for you. We want to increase the details or we want to decrease the details. So more detailed, more dreamy. More sharp, more dreamy. All right. Clarity is very simple. Okay. Clarity adds brightness and details to it. So pay attention to right here on the ground. If we take clarity away, it softens the photo. And if we increase clarity, it really makes those details pop. So it's really dependent on you on how much detail you want to show. Now, dehazing is great for sky. We don't have much sky in this, so I'm going to change the photo. So dehazing, if I increase dehaze, it's really going to show all the different parts of the sky if I increase it. And then if I decrease it, it's adding kind of this mist over the sky, like you're in the fog or you're in the cloud, and it also makes it a little bit more dreamy. Okay, so if I increase dehaze, I'm really going to see the sky and its details. It takes away any mist, any fog, any sort of thing in the sky that's not solid. And then if I decrease it, then it's adding sort of a mist to it. And then vignette, this one's great, is if I increase vignette, all it does is it makes a white border on the corners. So if you want to add a little bit of fog to it, and it helps you focus on one part of the photo. So that's on the right side. And then on the left side, it adds a black one. The majority of people who use vignettes use the black side, not the white side. You don't see too many photos with a white vignette, but you see it more with a black vignette. And this allows us to focus on something. And then finally, grain. We can add grain to the photo. This just makes it a little bit older, so I'm going to zoom in. A little more vintage feel, so I'm going to take the grain down. It's not very grainy, and then I can increase it just like that, and it makes it grainy, which if you want to have a more vintage, old school, retro photo, that's what grain does. All right, so you can rewatch this video. We've covered light, color, and effects, and you can play around with the detail and the optics and the geometry. We just don't have time for all of those things. So we're going to focus on light, color, and effects. So those are the three sliders, and the best way to learn is to play around with it.